Hi, my name is Sanjana, and I've been exploring different schools around the country, trying to understand what different schools do and what innovation can look like in education in India. And then I came across your school, and I have been intrigued to just understand what is the story behind your school, understand your intentions behind it. So maybe you can just start by giving an introduction about yourself and how you came into the space of education also in the first place.
So my name is Kunal Bhadoo, and I'm the co-founder and director of Kunskapskolan Schools in India. I do not come from a family of educationists. I'm a first generation edupreneur. Also, I do not have any formal degree as such in teaching. A keen interest though. I actually am a qualified chartered accountant. I qualified in the UK and I worked with a corporate with PwC for over 7 years in London. I had a keen interest with education, which also made me get involved with a lot of training and educational initiatives that we used to have internally for our staff at PwC. And I guess education was a calling, and here we are with the Kunskapskolan.
How come you chose, like, out of all the other philosophies that are, available right now, how come you came across this particular one? Because it's very, specific. So how did you come across that? And how did you feel like, you wanted to spend, the rest of your life just working on this?
Interesting question. I think as a child, obviously, I did not have much say in terms of where I went. It was obviously down to my parents and their aspirations for me. We did not have very good schools compared to the ambitions or aspirations my parents had for me. I come from a small town in Punjab called Abohar, and the first 4 years that I spent of my education was in a Christian missionary school way down in Missouri. It was the Convent of Jesus and Mary, Hampton Court. A very different approach to teaching. I'm sure most of the people would know what a missionary school's approach is like. To the next 5 years after that, I happened to study in a very legacy boarding school, the Mayo College, Ajmer. It was, again, there are a lot of legacy schools, but this was one that was very unique where way back in the 1880s, the then Viceroy of India had built a school to educate the princes and the people in and around Rajasthan. That had a very different approach and a very different grooming as such. And my final 2 years of education were at Delhi Public School, R.K. Puram, here in New Delhi, which again had a very, very different approach towards education. I think all these three schools that I went to, there was some really good, fantastic things that I saw in all of them. But there was no school where I saw that all of these three things, all these three schools, the good things that I saw were there. And, that was always a quest. Fast forward, the time that I was in London, I had the privilege of working in a top organization, one of the biggest consultancies in the world. And that gives you a perspective in terms of when you're working with top clients in the world, you're working on some really interesting assignments, to really see that what it will take in terms of being successful or doing well here. And then it was just going back and seeing that what they teach you in school or what I learned in school, could that be a little more relevant to what we really have to do in life? Because that's a typical classical question that everyone, I think word on the street is that, what I learned at school, I hardly get to apply it in real life. So that was the quest. I said, where do you get a schooling system that, integrates the good things about all these three type of different approaches that I had visited in these three different schools, as well as something that is truly relevant to today's day and age. And that's the time that I came across Kunskapskolan, who are the largest private school operators in Sweden. And they had a unique proprietary program with the personalized education. In fact, the first structured program with personalized education that was started way back in 1999. And how I came across them is in the time that I was living in the UK. Kunskapskolan was working with a number of British schools who were also in a similar quest, who were traditional legacy schools trying to modernize with the current times, and they were exploring this program. So took a trip down to Sweden and visited a number of schools to see, because I do believe that everything that's international might not be relevant for you. And I think this program had its inherent strength. I not only visited Stockholm, but I visited even smaller towns around in Sweden to see, how this program was faring and how it was doing. From mainstream Swedish families to even suburbs where we had people who had taken refuge in Sweden from, civil wars in their countries, etc. So ethnic minorities, and the system worked beautifully for all of them. In fact, I remember, one of the schools where we had a Somalian ethnic minority child who was just in Sweden 2 years ago, take me around and visit the school with the confidence that the child enthused into the whole interaction that we had, just got me thinking that here's a system that works for everyone. It's not just for the elite. It's just not for the typical business families. It's not typically for the typical parent who's in a multinational corporation, but even someone who's from humble backgrounds, who are looking to get good quality education for their child, who can see the world changing, and they want education that is relevant. They want education that can catapult their child to make their child good human beings and be successful according to what the change that they are seeing, the magnitude of disruption that we are seeing in the environment. So Kunskapskolan was literally like a holy grail that the quest ended with, and here we are now in the last 12 years with over 7 schools we have across the country. We have over 5,000 parents who've put their faith in us in India, and well received. So obviously, that's given us a lot of food for thought to how to continuously improvise, because this is truly, as I tell people, that this is a school that prepares your child for the future. And if the future is changing at such a fast pace, the third industrial revolution we talk about education 4.0. We talk about all these things. We are talking about artificial intelligence here. I don't know what's the next disruption to come. So a school that actually keeps pace with all these things, so that ultimately when your child is going to be there in, the world, whether in employment or self-employed, they are armed with technical knowledge and transferable skills that will make them successful in their area of interest and expertise, irrespective of whatever shocks we see as time goes by with disruption that we're seeing at such a fast pace in human civilization.
I think the main thing is around personalization and just understanding the child and then providing an education that, caters to that. We'll come to that. But I'm just trying to understand that when you get a education system from, Europe to India, what was the reaction like? Because even when I'm making videos, a lot of parents have these questions that what about exams? What about boards? How do we kind of, make sure that parents also understand? Or when you came, did you feel like, parents were very averse to this idea of, a new kind of education? What was the landscape like when you, wanted to start?
I think, we very often a term is used, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which is the world is one, one big family. And we're all, I think, humans, irrespective of different countries or different cultures, there are certain common strands that bind us. If you look at what our personalized learning program is, and you go dive deeper and see, you will see a commonality of this with traditionally what our own education system has been, which has been the Guru Shishya Parampara, or the Gurukul system of education that we had. If you look at it, very critically, I mean, what was the Guru Shishya Gurukul system? It was personalized learning. If you right from mythology, if I go down to the time of Mahabharata, where you had the 5 Pandavas who were all, trained or this thing with different weapons according to their interest and skill. to even later on that we've seen education systems where, if there was someone with great literary skills, I mean, they were trained to become, a writer or a poet, or if there was someone else who was good with, say, something else, got a chance to do something else. That obviously radically changed when the India was colonized. Because you have to see, when we were colonized, the need of the hour was an education system that could prepare children in large batches to take and follow instructions. So if you look at the traditional school classroom, the typical model is 40, 50 children in a class. The teacher is a preacher. The teacher would come and preach. You are supposed to absorb that information and reproduce that information for use later on. Whereas now, what we are seeing, obviously, we are still, today, we talk about uh, India 2047, where there's a vision that we have taken a collective resolve as a country, towards a Viksit Bharat, to a developed India, to be at the front of world civilization, to regain our glory. Then over here, we are talking about India driving innovation, or India leading the world in doing things. And that is not going to come out of following and reproducing knowledge. It is going to come out of gaining knowledge, but applying it in our own context to come up with unique solutions to problems that we see around. And that's where Kunskapskolan's inherent strength is. It happened to originate in Sweden, the Kunskapskolan concept. And there's an interesting history also how it came about. Was a gentleman called P. Emilson, who's a business advisor, and he has a multinational PR company. Worked with a lot of top companies and people in Scandinavia, and I had this quest that how can we make education more relevant. And he spoke to different people over a number of years in industry, in academia. In fact, there were a number of years that he spent in India also. He advised FICCI at the time when Mrs. Gandhi was there, who wanted to establish some institutions, forward-looking institutions, like the developed world countries. So with that exposure, he put together a team and said, okay, let's grab the bull by its horns. Everyone says that what you learn in school is not relevant to what you are doing in real life. Let's get on top of this problem. And this is how the KED program was born. The first school started way back in 1999. It is more than, a lot of people ask me, so they say that, so how do you integrate it with CBSE? And what I tell people is that, CBSE is the what. CBSE is telling you what to teach. It's giving you the curriculum. It's giving you topics. It's telling you in each grade or in each, what are the things that you have to cover. But CBSE is not telling you how. The how, predominantly, I think a lot of schools are just going on following the typical model that was there, as I said, the colonial model of education. Whereas there are schools that are now progressing. I mean, we see schools adopting experiential learning, learning by doing. We are looking at schools, now looking at different international approaches also, I see, especially in early years, Reggio Emilia or Montessori, all these things. But the unique thing about the KED program is the KED program is the how. How you can teach different things in a way that you are not only covering technical topics, but while studying those topics, you are also covering key skills that have to actually be taught. So, for example, if we look at goal setting, now,
What does KED stand for?
So KED is the Kunskapskolan education program.
Okay.
So I was just giving you an example. So I'm also a parent of a child who goes to a Kunskapskolan, and I see this not only with the 5,000 odd children that we have across, but I think as micro as in my own house, where we talk about goal setting. Now these children, right from when they're 2-3 years old, there's a certain way of doing things that is ingrained in their educational DNA by the school. So they have a logbook where they start their day and they write down what their academic goals are going to be for the day. As opposed to, I remember I have also come across different schools in different capacities where most of these skills are things that, perhaps in 1 year you will have a workshop on time management or goal setting. And that perhaps will be that, okay, children have attended this workshop on goal setting and now they know goal setting, and that's it. So I think in Kunskapskolan, the way we have taken, the content from CBSE or from Cambridge or from IB, and then uniquely weaved it around into a delivery model that, into a structured personalized learning program. So children, while they are pursuing these things, or, even assessments, if we talk about, so it's just not summative assessments where you are giving exams to showcase what you have learned. We have a mix of both formative and summative. So, you might just actually, to test your knowledge about a certain topic, you might actually be doing an assignment that design a campaign to eradicate or to educate people about poverty alleviation or hunger eradication, or anything on the SDGs. So in these sort of things, children are learning multiple things apart from just the topic that they had to learn, but also they are going about, they are researching, they are speaking to people, they're working in teams collaboratively, they're making a whole plan, they're setting goals for themselves, they're reflecting back on what they're doing, actually going out in the field, meeting real people, talking to them and putting together that's something that's useful. So
I'm just trying to understand what goal setting and personalized education can look like on ground in your school. So then let's say your child writes their goals and say that I want to do this by the end of this year or by the end of this week. What is the first timeline and how often do they do this and who reviews it for them? What if they just write it and they don't, like how do you make sure that the child is making sure that they get to their goals and they achieve those goals, and how are you making sure that there's a system in place that like teachers or people are involved to make sure that this happens?
So as I said that this is what we have is a first structured personalized learning program where, as I mentioned, the logbook, or I said the goal setting. So imagine this is like your first day at school. And I wouldn't say this only happens on the first day. This is basically a norm that happens week after week after week and happens every week. So at the start of the week, the children set their academic goals for the week. They write their goals, which are moderated by their base group coach, which is their main teacher facilitator. So they would say that, what level they will reach in every subject. We have rubrics. We have a level 1, level 2, level 3. Those rubrics are clearly documented and they're available on our learning portal. Kids also see it. So they set their goals for the week. Every day they have the last 15 minutes of the day is spent on reflection. So there's a formal reflection session where you open your logbook and you're supposed to just go through the goals that you've set for the week and reflect on that. Were you able to complete them or not? And if how have you fared? Is there something that you need to improvise? What went well? What didn't go so well? And so that you plan your next day. All these things, as I said, are moderated by the facilitators and coaches. Every week, a child has a personal coaching session. So one-on-one, they're sitting with their base group coach, who is reviewing their week's goals to see how did the previous week go. Were they able to achieve what they set out to achieve? What's working right? What's not so working so right? What strategies they can adopt to make things better, or to improvise on things that they are already feeling comfortable with. So that is something that happens every day. Also, we give a pause switch to the day, which is a workshop session. So apart from, just in a typical school, you'll have one period after another, after another, after another, like a roller coaster. Here's one session that they have that they can just catch up with whatever's happened during the day. Catch up means if you are feeling left behind with something, that's your time to actually, there are facilitators available for you to clarify your thinking about certain things, or you need help with something. Or if you've already done, your work and you need something to be challenged with. You want to kind of polish your skills further. So that is again the forum that you work on polishing your skills. A lot of people ask me, I'm going slightly out of context, but people ask me that, okay, what if someone had to crack competitive examinations? So, when you talk about experiential learning and goal setting and everything, so, competitive examinations are very fierce. I mean, the competition is fierce. So how will they do it? I mean, I would say that it's not such a tough nut to crack. Why? You will set your goal. I want to crack the competitive examinations. And you will break that down into seeing that, okay, what will it take? It's going to take me to do this, which might mean that, okay, I need to give in so many hours to studying outside my regular school assignments. How am I going to take that time out? Where am I going to do it? So it's a very structured way of thinking that, you are approaching different things and you are keeping your base group, your facilitators informed about this, who are there to help you and guide you with all those things. So it's a beautiful system that works. Also, an interesting thing is that while we were in school, I think every quarter or a half year is when there used to be a very detailed, comprehensive review that you got reports from your teachers about how you were faring in different subjects. I mean, here with our school system, the beauty is that there's an EDS, which is an educational documentation system, where feedback and feed forward on how your child is progressing with regard to different subjects according to their goals that, and the rubrics that we have set. So all that is documented for review by the parent and the child. So, there is dynamic course correction as opposed to, it's only 6 months later that you find out during your half yearlies when the teacher sits down to make a report that, oh, you're lagging behind. And then you are under pressure, that the pressure of starting a new session, keeping up to pace with that and, coping with what you don't know so far. So works beautifully.
Yeah, no, so I definitely agree. I think there's a general misconception in general that if you want a particular goal, you would do exactly that to achieve the goal. For example, if you want to learn AI, you learn how to use ChatGPT. But for like learning how to use AI, you need critical thinking, creativity. So those are the basic components that help you, achieve a goal. So I think the point that you made, if you learn how to set goals, exams are like part of the whole process. So right now, when I was walking around the school also, I noticed that, there are so many different spaces. There's like a stitching unit, there's painting, there's this whole art and media space. So in all of this goal setting and, personalized education, what is the importance of having exposure to, all these different types of approaches and spaces where children can just explore?
So I'd say two things here. One, Kunskapskolan lays a very strong emphasis on life skills. So being independent with different things that you are doing. So if we look at cooking, well, we expect each of our students to know how to cook themselves, irrespective of gender. When it comes to stitching, well, I mean, I've had a lot of times where, putting my shirt in the laundry, the button kind of cracked or something, and I had to sew a button. So these, or to a more advanced this thing where I fancied kind of like, designing a nice funky t-shirt when I was in my teens. I used to love the Chicago Bulls. At that time in India, you didn't have so much of merchandise, and I wanted to really have that Chicago Bulls t-shirt so I could, create one myself if I didn't sort of have it. Two, I think more so finding your professional interests or pursuits, that, there are certain professions that you may have a calling towards or an interest towards, and you'd like to explore. So I think for us as a school, it's about giving children different avenues to explore, to see, to try out, and form, an opinion or an interest in terms of what they really want to do when they're going further. Which is something that was missing, is largely missing in a lot of schools, especially, from the times that we come. There were not so many opportunities that were available. I mean, most of these things formed, part of what we had, the SUPW, which we used to joke around. It was like some useful period wasted. But I think as opposed to that, these are things that kids actually enjoy and they look forward to, and brings out their creative expression when they are, working with all these things. It's also a good break from the monotony of just the academic pursuit that you are doing during the course of the day, it re-energizes your mind. Plus, most importantly, as I said, for them to explore their interests. Because when you talk about personalized learning, we are not a school. I tell people that we are not the holy grail of schools. We haven't found the perfect mold that you can put your child into, and here's a highly successful child. We say that we are a school that the child can find the best in themselves. So I we have what we look at the Japanese concept of ikigai. So if I apply that to schools, I say, well, I mean, one side you have your child's interests, you have your child's own capabilities, you have the aspiration of the parents for the child, and then you have the nuances of the world. Education 4.0, third industrial revolution. And what we are trying to help children do is, among all these four, find that sweet spot that kind of brings all this together, and they are preparing themselves for something, or will engage in something that is highly useful, that is valuable to the world, that can actually make them earn enough to pay their bills and fulfill their financial aspirations, and transform them into good human beings who are who are doing something for society and the community at large.
Yeah, I think I've never thought of it as like an ikigai. I think that's a good analogy. And I think that's exactly how education is right now. And that's why it's so complex, because there are so many people who want different things out of it, and so many stakeholders, right? Just to ask you like a last question, because there are so many, stakeholders and, different things that kids do. What does a child's life look like if they go to the school? Like if they come to school, like how much time is spent doing extracurricular activities, how much time is academics, what does a day look like in a child's life?
So a day typically starts with a base group session. So we don't have the concept of traditional assemblies that we had. So you can say a base group session is a more personalized assembly. So what you're doing is that you're discussing current affairs. You are the facilitator would perhaps say, pick out any particular topic that is of significance, even some hard topics, so things that children get exposed to in media but don't know how to process it in right earnest. So things are brought up for discussion, different points of view are discussed, what everyone thinks about those, and the teacher as a moderator tries to instill the right sort of thinking, or how to process those. Or sometimes not everything has to be processed. Sometimes it's just like, okay, your voice, your choice. I mean, everyone bringing out to also appreciating, empathetically, that there can be different points of view, what different people can think about, the same thing in different ways. They set their goals for the day, what they are going to do. They document their daily plans. They get on with sessions. They have a mix of sessions, which are academic sessions and co-curricular sessions, fairly balanced during the course of the day. We try to have the science and maths put during the course of the day. We try to have the science and maths put in the first half, so that you're fresh. To the co-curriculars kind of coming in a little later, when you need to sort of just recharge. To even physical activity and sports that comes in. As I said, during the course of the day, certain children will have their personal coaching sessions. Apart from that, there's a workshop that happens every day, where children get to catch up on any pending piece of work, or higher order learning, or catch up on if they're lagging behind in something. To even different sessions that are happening. So for one subject, it's just not a classroom lecture session that's happening. There are lecture sessions, there are lab sessions which are happening, where kids are like doing hands-on experiments and activities for particular things. There is a reflection that happens every day, sacrosanct, just to see how the day is gone. What am I going to be planning to do tomorrow? How's the day been? And the beautiful part is that all this, what I'm saying, you perhaps might think that, okay, this is something that must be applying more to senior school. And I would say that you'll be shocked that this applies right from the time that you actually come to school as a toddler. So yes, as a toddler, you cannot think of all these things. But as I said, that it is building these things into your educational DNA. So when you talk about reflection, so maybe a child in nursery is simply taking crayons drawing a smiley face in terms of how they felt. So today was a good day, so there's a smiling smiley. Or today was, well, I mean, fairly sort of average. I had, ups and downs, but on the whole, okay. So perhaps they're drawing some animal to bring out, how, failure or any other aspect which is there. Even in terms of their goal setting, when they are doing their scribbling or doing anything that at that point in time they can decipher or they can express. But the whole idea is that as they are doing it right from nursery, that they know by the time they get into something more meaningful, primary school, that okay, I start my day with a logbook. This is there to document my thoughts, my goals about how I feel and everything. Stickers are also there. Sorry, when I came to, because my son's now in grade 8, so I remember his time going back. So, the teachers have stickers for them to express how they're feeling. There's a lot of emphasis on socio emotional learning, um, because I feel that in the world that we are living today, I think everything with after AI, I guess everything is out there, really. I mean, for the kind of things that AI can do, and every month you have next versions and next versions and versions that combine some versions to create new versions. So I think what the future of education is that at one point in time, education or content was king. So anyone who had really great content was, I think that was prized. And I think now everything is out there: content, application. uh, it is for children to maneuver their own unique pathways, as I said, find their ikigai ultimately, and for schools also to be facilitators in helping those children find their ikigai. And that's what exactly what Kunskapskolan is doing. Yes, when we look at what is the purpose of school, so we're talking about building foundation skills so that they can, which are relevant and they can use later on in life. There is another aspect to it also. We just broached the topic about competitive exams. So ultimately, to school, most of the kids want to get into a good college or a good university, good undergrad, and that comes from good grades, and that's what Kunskapskolan has its eyes on very very strongly as well. So ultimately, the ultimate goal is academic excellence of each child. That is the primary focus of the school. But how you get there in not such a draconian way as we see around, or what we saw in our times. I think it's kind of getting there in a way that you love school, you love being out here, you have a voice, you have a choice, you feel you're cared. Your facilitators make it engaging and interesting to do things. You are expressing yourself in ways. You are working on projects, you're working on assessments, assignments in such a way which actually, when you go on to the corporate world and you are asked to make a presentation, it's not something that's come as a shock to you. You've been doing that, and you know how to do that. So I think schools have to be more foregrounds of, rather than imparting that uh, teaching and learning, or loading them with content and focus on just completing the syllabus and just getting good marks in the exams and whatever it may take to get that. I think Kunskapskolan tries to do everything in a more fun, engaging, structured, human way, I would say. Perhaps that's the best term to define it.
Most basic thing.
That, more humanely, more like humans, or more how it's supposed to be.
When you were saying all of this, I was just thinking about the role of the facilitator, the teacher. What role do they play to ensure that something like this happens? Because obviously the kid is not, in his space alone. So how when you're, choosing a teacher, getting a teacher involved, like what is something that you look for? What is something that you feel like, this teacher will fit into the school to understand the system?
So I think when we started 12 years ago, so there was no school like ours, and that was the challenge. How do you start? So, well, I mean, we had a lot of facilitators from Sweden, some senior people who came in here, spent a number of years initially building that capacity here locally, and they continue to be very closely involved. At the same time, what we were looking in for teachers was people with the right attitude and aptitude. So obviously, if you're looking for a maths teacher, you do expect them to have mathematics and a degree in mathematics and good academic credentials. But I think apart from that, it's the shared values that we just talked about, that you are willing to go that extra mile. I do understand that for facilitators, the easiest thing would be you come with a pre-prepared lesson, chalk and board, deliver the lecture, and out you go, deliver the assessment, and fail, pass, good, distinction, and that's about it. To hear people who have that shared value system of that, yes, we believe in everything, what you say, what you do. And we have 4 levels of screening before a teacher qualifies to become a teacher at Kunskapskolan. And then there's a very rigorous continuous professional development program where all these values, as I said, so we don't do the 1 hour workshop a year on time management and say everyone knows time management now, tick the box. We do appreciate that learning is continuous. It has to become part of your educational DNA. And as soon as they join, they are assigned a mentor. Uh, there is on the job training that happens before the start of the session, even during the session. We have a CAD academy, which we form, which is a set of professional learning courses that the teachers have to take up as they go along, depending also on the different curriculums that our teachers are following, because we are the perhaps the only school in the country, or among the very few that offer a continuum of all three curriculums. So you'll not find all three curriculums under one roof. So we offer a full continuum of CBSE, of Cambridge, and IB. So these boards also have their own unique requirements in terms of approaches or assessments, etc. So apart, they are also put on to these. I think in the end, we look at ourselves as a very closely knit community school where we all realize that what has to be done and what it's going to take to do that. Initially, we had a lot of teachers who came in who were like some very smart people who worked for top corporates, went the family way, wanted to get back into the workforce, into something that was more good work-life balance. Our training program and our focus on professional development helped us to rope in such people, train them, put them out in the classroom. And it's great to see today, if I look at some of my schools, I mean, my vice principal is someone who started absolutely afresh 12 years ago, just out of a early years program, and that's where they've reached. And today she's in a capacity where she's very highly sought after by so many different schools who want her to come and train their teachers. So very strong faculty development program in-house, which is obviously facilitated by Swedish partners who also looking at the vast network of schools that we have in the Kunskapskolan education network, with schools in Netherlands, in the UK that are using the CAD program, Saudi Arabia, India, Sweden, obviously. So there's a lot of cross fertilization, cross learning. There are teacher exchange programs that is happening. We have teachers from there who are coming, spending significant amounts of time. We have a buddy program with not only students but also teachers who are across the international network, who are regularly kind of talking to each other and sharing best practices. And those best practices is what, when every 2 weeks, there are refresher sessions happening with training on different aspects that we see, needs across the school or certain things that we know. So things like personal coaching, for example, is personal coaching, understanding each child, getting them prepared to make the most out of it. You need to be professionally trained. So, we look at those different things, and all teachers, all facilitators are technically coached to whatever extent it has to be, till we see that they are good to kind of, take those challenges on head on. And even after that, there's continuous refresher training that keeps happening to help them keep brushing up and improving, improvising their skills.
Yeah, and I think we spoke about students and we understood, they have personalized education and the goal setting bit and, what their day looks like. And we spoke about teachers now and, how there's continuous training that they also do. I think the third main stakeholder is also parents. How do you make sure that parents are involved? How do you make sure that parents also, are part of your philosophy? Because for them also it's something that is new and different. So how do you make sure that they feel involved? How do you make sure that they are also, part of your philosophy and, just environment?
So I think first and foremost starts with the process of enrollments that we have. So as part of the process of enrollments, it's a very transparent process where we follow, where we anyone who's interested in Kunskapskolan, we make sure they truly understand why what Kunskapskolan offers and why they should choose us. I see a lot of schools around who would have different ways of how they are enrolling people. I mean, some schools are collecting applications over 3 days and then taking out draw of lots and things. So I think in today's day and age, I just wonder that you are going to be spending your child's going to be spending about 15 to 16 years of their life building foundation skills. And here we are going in and choosing schools because someone who lives in the neighborhood has good things to say, or someone in the office had something good to say. How do I know that that's the right fit for me? Or as I said, the education leaky guy that I just mentioned about. So our enrollment is process is to fully educate the parent what the program is. After you become a parent of Kunskapskolan, as I said, that there are regular orientation sessions that happen. A lot of, I think most of the other progressive schools also do it. Obviously, the parent has to know what the school's policies, procedures, or this thing are. I think key difference that I see from the schools that I also went to and things that I see around is that this weekly update system which is there through the EDS. So as a parent, I can see every week what my child's progress is, what they are working on, how they are faring. And as I said, it's just not feedback, it is also feed forward. So my son's English teacher will tell me if they are working on a certain topic in English, that this is what they're covering. They had some assessment, he's doing okay. These are some things that you can do further to build higher order skills. Or if he's lacking somewhere, they will say so that okay, needs a bit of practice in this, you should get them to do this. So we have that. We have very strong parent community from time to time. We have parent open houses that are there. Apart from that, in terms of the regular update, as I said, is the weekly update, and then we have the development discussions that happen between parents and the base group, the form teacher of their children, where again they are taken through the entire portfolio of what their child has been working on during those last 2 months or so, for them to really see how the learning is going. We also have a concept of subjects, as I told you, that we've taken content out from the different boards and then put that into a uniquely sort of crafted personalized learning framework. And as part of that, what happens is that when children complete every step or theme as the syllabus is broken down into, so they have presentations to demonstrate their learning. And often parents are called for those presentations for them to not only see how their children are faring, but I think it's also a morale booster for children that they're getting to exhibit what they're doing in front of their parents. So I think it's uh, it's a very dynamic relationship which is there between the school and the parents. Again, because as I said, that we philosophically, I look at it as a community school, that it's by like-minded people for like-minded people. Uh, so, as I said, we don't claim we have the holy grail of education, and ultimately, it's about everyone has good things to contribute. We have a very strong parent volunteering program where a lot of parents from different fields of and walks of society are coming in regularly, speaking to children on different things, different topics, or being involved in activities. So I think all in all, both students and parents feel part of the school, and that's what we also want. That we are just facilitators uh, in a community that is has one single aim, that the child in the center. Yeah. Child should flourish.
Yeah, and I think not a lot of founders also mention that, it's not the whole thing because everybody wants to sell their school as the best school. And I feel like for you to say that also is like, a big thing because then I feel like you're invested and you know that there's a lot of scope for development. And funnily enough, that before I came here, I spoke to like one of the principals, I think, and I was just mentioning that when I'm here, at least I feel like all the teachers and, the people want to grow and want to, like develop themselves, and I feel like that's the most important part of any school, that people need to want to change, to improve. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to just have this conversation with me, to just for me to understand what Kunskapskolan does, how it actually happens on ground. So thank you for your time.
It's great to have you here, and we all have a lot to learn. And for those of you viewing, I mean, Sanjana around with a keen interest across different schools, and we keenly follow her on Instagram because, as I said, there's a lot to there's goodness in a lot of things, in everything around. I would say, and there are lots of schools doing lots of wonderful things, and we all have a lot to learn from each other. And through this forum, I would say, opening up our arms to anyone who feels they'd like to come and visit Kunskapskolan, or share ideas and thoughts about education. As I said, because we're a larger community, lot to learn from each other, and with the ultimate aim of that, we want to groom a generation of future ready children who are good human beings who will do good for society, and I think continuously evolve and improve things around us to make a better world. Thank you.